Right now, you are breathing. You have been breathing every minute of every day since the moment you were born. You have never had to think about it, never had to learn it, never had to practice. And yet, almost certainly you are doing it wrong. Not slightly wrong. Fundamentally, structurally, mechanically wrong. And the consequences of that are quietly reshaping your face, your sleep, your focus, your mood, and the very structure of your skull. That is not a metaphor. Your bones are changing because of how you breathe. And the story of why starts not in a hospital or a laboratory, but roughly 10,000 years ago, in a moment when humans made a decision that would haunt every generation that followed. Take a breath, a normal one, whatever feels natural. Where does the air go? If your chest rose, if your shoulders lifted slightly, if your belly stayed still or even pulled inward, you just demonstrated exactly what this video is about. That pattern, the one that feels completely normal, the one you do without thinking, the one that seems right, is something your ancient ancestors would not have recognized. It is a modern invention, and it is making you sick in ways you cannot see. Here is the reframe. Breathing is not just a reflex, it is a skill that modern humans have forgotten, and the scientific evidence of that forgetting is written directly into your body. Start with your face, your jaw specifically. Anthropologists and dentists studying ancient skulls have noticed something strange. Pre-agricultural human skulls, going back 30 or 40,000 years, show almost perfect dental alignment, wide dental arches, no crowding, no wisdom teeth impaction. The jaws are broad, the palates are high and wide, and every tooth fits. Then something shifts. Around 10,000 years ago, with the rise of farming and cooked, softened food, the jaw begins to narrow. By the time you reach industrialized populations eating processed food, the change is dramatic. The dental arch collapses inward, teeth crowd and overlap. The roof of the mouth rises into a high, narrow vault. Wisdom teeth have nowhere to go. Orthodontist and researcher Kevin Boyd has spent decades tracing this transformation, arguing that what we call a normal modern bite is actually a pathological deviation from the human baseline. And the key mechanism driving this transformation is not just diet, it is mouth breathing. When you breathe through your mouth, your tongue drops to the floor of your mouth. It no longer rests against the palate. And the palate, it turns out, is not fixed bone. It is malleable, especially in childhood. The tongue pressing upward against the palate from infancy through adolescence is the force that shapes the dental arch wide and flat. Without that constant pressure, the palate narrows, the airway above it narrows. And then, to breathe more easily through a narrower airway, you drop your jaw. You open your mouth, which makes everything worse. James Nestor, author of the book Breath, spent years investigating this loop. He tracked how chronic mouth breathing reshapes the face in childhood, elongating it vertically, pulling the chin back, narrowing the nostrils, and reducing the size of the airway. The face literally grows differently depending on whether a child breathes through their nose or their mouth. This is not speculation. It is measurable, observable, and documented across populations. But your face is not the only thing changing. Your body is responding to every single breath you take, right now, in real time. Here is what happens when you breathe through your chest. Each shallow chest breath activates your upper respiratory muscles, your scalenes, your sternocleidomastoid, the muscles along the top of your shoulders and neck. These muscles were not designed for continuous use. They were designed for emergency use, for the moment a threat appeared and your body needed air fast. When you use them all day, every day as your primary breathing muscles, they become chronically tight. The tension spreads into your shoulders, your jaw, your neck. And because these same muscles are also associated with the stress response, your nervous system reads the pattern and draws a conclusion. Something must be wrong. Stay alert. This is the loop that sleep researcher Christian Guilleminault and colleagues have studied for decades in the context of sleep-disordered breathing. Mouth breathing during sleep is among the strongest predictors of sleep apnea, the condition where your airway partially collapses during sleep and your brain is forced to wake you slightly, sometimes hundreds of times a night, just to keep air moving. Most people who have sleep apnea do not know it. They wake feeling unrefreshed. They are foggy in the morning. They struggle to concentrate. They are irritable. They reach for caffeine. And somewhere across town, a dentist is looking at the wear patterns on their teeth, the narrowness of their arch, the position of their tongue, and seeing the same story written in enamel. Now here is the part that rewires your understanding of the whole problem. Nose breathing is not just a slightly better version of mouth breathing. It is a physiologically different process. When air enters through the nose, it passes through the nasal turbinates, those spiral-shaped bones inside your nasal cavity, and is warmed, humidified, and filtered before it ever reaches your lungs. The turbinates are covered in tissue that produces nitric oxide, a molecule that dilates blood vessels, relaxes smooth muscle, and dramatically improves the efficiency of oxygen transfer in the lungs. Air breathed through the nose delivers more usable oxygen per breath than the same volume of air breathed through the mouth. That is not a fringe claim. It is basic respiratory physiology confirmed in dozens of peer-reviewed studies. The nose also creates resistance. That slight pressure required to pull air through the nasal passages slows the breathing rate. Slower breathing means more time for gas exchange in the alveoli, more time for carbon dioxide to be offloaded. And carbon dioxide, it turns out, is not just a waste product, it is a trigger. It is the signal your body uses to release oxygen from red blood cells into tissues. If you blow off carbon dioxide too quickly, as you do when you breathe fast and shallow through your mouth, your red blood cells hold on to their oxygen too tightly. Your tissues actually receive less oxygen, even though you are breathing more. This is the Bohr effect, identified by Danish physiologist Christian Bohr in 1904, and it explains why people who hyperventilate feel dizzy and faint, not from too little oxygen in their blood, but from too much. The body loses its ability to use what it already has. Your ancient ancestors breathed differently, not because they were better at it consciously, but because their environment forced them to. They chewed tough, fibrous food for hours every day. Their jaw muscles were powerful, their palates were wide, their nasal passages were broad, their noses were shaped not just by genetics but by a lifetime of constant nasal airflow. They slept in positions that kept the airway open. And they breathed slowly, in and out through the nose, using the diaphragm, the large dome-shaped muscle at the base of the lungs, as the primary engine of every breath. The diaphragm is the correct muscle for breathing, not the chest, not the shoulders, not the neck. When the diaphragm contracts downward, it creates a pressure drop in the thoracic cavity, and air rushes into the lungs from above. The belly expands outward, the lower ribs flare slightly. The breath is deep, slow, and mechanically efficient. When you watch a sleeping infant, this is what you see. The belly rises and falls, the breath is slow, the mouth is closed. Every single component of that breathing pattern is exactly what most adults have abandoned. Breathing researcher Patrick McKeown, building on the work of Soviet physician Konstantin Buteyko, has documented hundreds of cases of people reversing chronic health conditions, including asthma, anxiety, high blood pressure, and sleep disorders, simply by retraining their breathing pattern. Not through medication, not through surgery. Through slow, nasal, diaphragmatic breathing. The Buteyko method, developed in the 1950s, centered on the idea that most modern humans are chronically overbreathing, moving far more air per minute than their physiology requires. The result is a body perpetually tipped toward the stress response, perpetually starved of functional oxygen delivery, perpetually tense around the neck and shoulders. The research on this is now extensive enough that sleep physicians have begun recommending mouth taping at night, a strip of medical tape placed across closed lips during sleep to prevent mouth breathing. The results in some studies are striking: snoring reduced, sleep quality improved, morning headaches gone, energy up. It sounds absurd, a strip of tape. But the absurdity is not in the tape. It is in the fact that you needed it in the first place. Your body was never designed to sleep with its mouth open. That adaptation happened gradually, silently, across generations of narrowing jaws and narrowing airways, and now it feels so normal that the corrective intervention is the thing that seems strange. Here is the mirror. Right now, the way you are sitting, reading, or listening to this, your tongue is probably resting on the floor of your mouth. Your jaw may be slightly open. If you are in a room with other people and you looked around, you would see it everywhere. Slack jaws, slightly parted lips, mouths barely open but open. It is the resting face of the modern world, and it is a symptom. The fix is not complicated. Close your mouth, right now. Let your teeth come gently together, or just barely apart. Rest the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth, just behind your upper front teeth. Breathe in slowly through your nose, and let your belly rise first, then your lower ribs. Hold nothing, force nothing, just let the diaphragm do what it was built to do. Breathe out through your nose, slower than you breathed in. That is it. That is the ancient pattern. That is what your body was doing 10,000 years ago, before the jaw narrowed and the airway collapsed and the shoulders crept up and the nights became restless. You have been breathing every minute of every day since the moment you were born. And now, for the first time, you know what you have been doing wrong.